Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's read the headlines for a minute, the ups and downs. Today, we're really digging into Bitcoin, not just as that digital currency everyone talks about, but maybe as something more fundamental, like a potential tool for businesses, maybe even shaping a new financial era.
Exactly. We've pulled together some, I think, really interesting stuff, especially looking at what the Bitcoin Plus executive certification from AI Certs offers. Our mission, if you like, is to figure out why Bitcoin's becoming so important for businesses, all kinds of businesses, and, well, what that actually means for you.
Right, and we want to keep this straightforward, no deep tech jargon needed here. The idea is by the time we're done, you'll have a pretty clear sense of Bitcoin's practical side, its power, and how it might actually connect to what you do, no matter where you're starting from.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What is this Bitcoin Plus executive certification? And why now? Why should leaders be, paying attention?
Well, what's interesting is that it's not some abstract university course, right? The AI Certs program, this Bitcoin Plus executive certification, it's very hands-on. It's really designed for people leading teams, tech professionals, strategists. It's about getting a solid grasp of Bitcoin, yes, but also all the connected bits, blockchain, smart contracts, dApps, and crucially, the rules, the compliance side. It's about knowledge you can actually use.
Okay, so not just the what, but the how businesses can actually make it work for them. And the timing. It feels like this is happening right now, doesn't it? The growth is just undeniable.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the bigger picture, the numbers are pretty staggering. The Bitcoin market, over $27 billion this year alone. And they're projecting, what is it, over $220 billion by 2033. That's like 26% growth every year. That's huge. And this isn't just hype. It signals a real shift in how people see digital assets. Plus, you've got over 100 million active Bitcoin wallets out there. That's mainstream adoption starting to really kick in. Think about it. If you're in e-commerce, that's a whole lot of potential customers getting comfortable with digital money.
26%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more than just a minor trend. That signals something bigger. And it's not just individuals messing around with wallets, is it? We're seeing major players make moves.
Precisely. You've got huge companies like Tesla, MicroStrategy. They've put serious money into Bitcoin as part of their treasury strategy. That's a big statement. And then, yeah, you have actual countries like El Salvador saying this is legal tender. It's moving beyond the fringe. It's cementing Bitcoin's place as maybe digital gold, or at least a way to potentially hedge against inflation.
Right. So this certification sounds like it's about getting people ready to navigate all that, to see where their own business fits in strategically. Okay, so if someone's listening and thinking, this sounds interesting, but maybe too technical for me, what kind of background knowledge is actually needed?
That's a really important point. The course is actually set up to build on stuff many people in business already kind of know, like basic computer processes, how open networks like the internet work, that kind of thing. Having a little familiarity with blockchain basics helps, sure. And just a general sense of how finance works or supply chains or trading assets, even just knowing how IT helps a business run day to day or being curious about crypto wallets. That's a good starting point. It's meant to be accessible.
Okay, that's good to hear. Sounds less intimidating than designed to kind of bring people up to speed, whatever their role. Speaking of roles, who exactly would get the most out of this deeper understanding?
Yeah, who's it relevant for? That's key. And the answer is, well, it's pretty broad, actually. You've got your business leaders, your execs, obviously, people trying to find that competitive edge, new strategies. Financial pros definitely need to get their heads around digital assets. It's becoming a big part of the landscape. And of course, entrepreneurs, startup founders, anyone trying to build the next big thing in fintech.
So the innovators, the strategists, what about people in more, let's say, traditional finance or tech roles?
Them too, absolutely. Investors and traders obviously need to understand what drives these markets. IT folks, tech professionals who need to get under the hood, understand the technical side of Bitcoin and blockchain, consultants advising on digital transformation, huge area. Even people in traditional banking payment systems. They need to know what's coming. Wealth managers, too, advising clients on adding Bitcoin to portfolios. It really cuts across a lot of sectors.
It really does paint a picture of something fundamental changing. So, okay, let's say someone invests the time, gets this knowledge. What are the actual skills? What can they do afterwards?
The outcomes are pretty concrete, actually. First, you get a really solid understanding of Bitcoin's structure, decentralized, and its role in finance now. Second, you actually learn to interact with it. Learning Bitcoin script, that's the programming language, lets you set up secure custom transactions. Then there's understanding layer 2 solutions, things like Lightning Network, Liquid Network. Think of the main Bitcoin blockchain like a busy highway. Layer 2s are like express lanes on top, making everyday transactions much faster and cheaper.
Ah, okay. So moving beyond just knowing about Bitcoin to actually being able to work with it to build things or set things up, what else?
Navigating the legal stuff, that's huge. Compliance, regulations, you need to understand the rules of the road. Developing practical skills with Bitcoin SDKs and APIs. These are basically toolkits that let businesses plug Bitcoin features into their own systems more easily. And finally, really getting a grip on the real world uses, seeing how it's applied in banking, supply chains, even digital identity. That gives you the context and, sparks ideas.
It sounds like a progression from the basics right through to practical, hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Deloitte earlier. How do they see Bitcoin actually changing businesses, like in tangible ways?
Yeah, Deloitte highlights a few key things. Because it's decentralized, Bitcoin can seriously cut down transaction costs and delays compared to traditional banking. It also helps businesses go global more easily. International payments without all the usual currency conversion hassle and fees, that's a big one.
That's immediately appealing for any company working across borders. What other transformations do they point to?
Financial inclusion is another major point. Bitcoin can give people without access to traditional banks a way into the financial system. And then there are new ways for businesses to make money. Things like tokenization, turning real-world assets into digital tokens, microtransactions, using smart contracts to automate agreements. Basically, if you think about common business headaches, high fees, fraud risks, people being unbanked, currency exchange complexity, Bitcoin offers potential solutions.
So it's not just theoretical benefits, it's about solving real problems businesses face today. Can you give us a concrete example? How are companies actually using it now?
Sure, payroll is a great example, especially for global teams. Paying people instantly across borders with Bitcoin can be way cheaper and faster than traditional methods. Cuts out the middlemen, the delays, and some forward-thinking companies are even offering Bitcoin as part of salary or retirement plans. That can be a real draw, especially for attracting tech talent who are often into this stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. You can see the efficiency gains plus the appeal to certain employees. Okay, so if a business owner is listening and thinking, all right, I'm interested, but where do I even begin? What are the first practical steps?
Well, AI Certs outlines a pretty logical path for this. Step one is really thinking it through. Evaluate the potential use cases for your specific business. Where could Bitcoin actually help? Then you need the infrastructure. Setting up secure Bitcoin wallets is obviously key. And choosing a reliable payment gateway that handles Bitcoin transactions. That's another practical step.
Okay, getting the technical foundations right. What comes after that?
Well, you'll likely need to update your financial and accounting systems to handle digital assets properly. That's important. And crucially, training your team. People need to understand how it works, and you need clear internal policies for managing it. Then you might start promoting it as a payment option if that's your goal. And of course, staying on top of regulations is non-negotiable. Finally, you monitor it, see how it's performing, what impact it's having.
Right, it's a process, not a switch you just flip. It requires planning. Now let's dive a bit deeper into the certification itself. Can you give us a flavor of the modules? What are some of the key, maybe more intriguing things covered?
Sure. Module 1 really sets the scene. It looks at blockchain, generally how it solves problems like security and transparency in old-style centralized systems. Then it zooms in on Bitcoin, specifically the opportunities it opens up, but also realistically the challenges like scaling it up for massive use.
Okay, so the foundation, the big picture.
Yeah.
What about Module 2?
Module 2 gets into the nuts and bolts of the Bitcoin blockchain itself. Things like cryptographic, hashing, the sort of digital fingerprinting that keeps data secure, how decentralized networks function, consensus mechanisms like proof of work, how everyone agrees on the transaction history. It really digs into how Bitcoin achieves its security, validates transactions, maintains integrity, and again, the regulatory angle is touched upon.
Getting into the mechanics. Module 3 on Bitcoin script. Sounds pretty technical but interesting. What's that about?
Yeah, Module 3 is where you see the programmability of Bitcoin. Bitcoin script allows for more complex transactions. Think multi-signature requirements needing several people to approve a payment, time-locked contracts where funds are only released after a certain date, escrow services built right in, even atomic swaps directly trading one crypto for another without needing an exchange in the middle. It shows Bitcoin can be more than just simple payments.
Right, moving beyond just sending and receiving. Now, Module 4 covers other blockchain frameworks. Why look at Ethereum or Hyperledger in a Bitcoin course?
That's a good question. It's about context. Module 4 gives you that wider view. Ethereum, for instance, is famous for smart contracts and tokens. Hyperledger is more for private, business-focused blockchains. EOS, Corda, they all have different strengths. Understanding them helps you appreciate what makes Bitcoin unique, where it shines, and maybe where other systems are better suited or how they might even work together eventually.
Okay, seeing the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Module 5 is Advanced Blockchain Concepts. Sounds cutting edge. What's covered?
Yeah, this gets into things like those layer 2 solutions we mentioned, Lightning Network for speed, CoinJoin for privacy, also Taproot, that's a relatively recent Bitcoin upgrade boosting efficiency and privacy, and other concepts like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, side chains, tokenization. It's all about how to scale blockchain effectively and securely for more complex uses.
Some pretty advanced stuff there. Module 6 seems very practical. Cryptocurrencies, trading, regulations, and compliance. Vital for businesses, I imagine.
Absolutely critical. Module 6 covers a lot of ground. Basic wallet security, understanding ICOs, NFTs. It looks at exchanges both centralized and decentralized. Critically, it dives into how regulations differ around the world. Plus, introductions to DeFi, decentralized finance, DAOs again, and responsible trading practices. You need this to operate safely.
For sure. Navigating that is key. Module 7 brings it back to Bitcoin real-world applications. What kind of examples do they explore?
This module makes it really tangible. How Bitcoin is used today for cross-border payments, for implementing smart contracts, for financial inclusion, making supply chains more transparent. It also looks at the specific tech enabling this, like Lightning, Rootstock, which adds smart contract capabilities to Bitcoin, the Liquid Network for faster exchange settlements, and those atomic swaps again.
Seeing it in action really helps. And finally, Module 8. Fusion of Bitcoin with other technologies. Sounds futuristic.
It kind of is. Module 8 looks at how Bitcoin and blockchain can work with other big technologies. Think AI, IoT, Internet of Things, edge computing, even quantum computing, like using blockchain to secure data from IoT sensors, using AI to analyze blockchain data, and considering the impact, both the threat and potential solutions of quantum computers on current encryption. It's looking ahead.
Wow, so it really connects Bitcoin to the broader tech landscape. Now, despite all this potential, we know companies aren't just jumping in feet first everywhere. What are the main things holding back wider business adoption right now?
Yeah, there are definitely hurdles. One of the biggest, finding people with the right skills. There's a real shortage. Recent stats, I think from 2023, showed something like 42% of big employers see this skills gap as a major roadblock. And you hear similar things, sometimes even higher percentages, in places like France, Canada, Ireland. It's a global issue.
Right. The tech might be ready, but the workforce needs to catch up. What else?
Well, the data itself can be complex to handle with older IT systems. Integration is often tricky, plugging this new tech into existing infrastructure. And sometimes there's just internal resistance. Change can be hard. Plus, regulatory uncertainty in some areas doesn't help.
These are definitely real challenges.
Yeah.
So how does something like AI Certs try to tackle these problems? How do they help organizations get past these hurdles?
This is where their approach really shines, I think. They directly target that skills gap with role-specific training. They get that a developer needs different training than a strategist or a financial advisor, so the curriculum is tailored. And it's not just about dumping information, it's about building a Bitcoin-ready culture. That means encouraging collaboration between departments, continuous learning, building skills across teams.
So it's more holistic, not just training one person, but preparing the whole organization. What makes their certifications effective in doing that?
Well, a few things. They're designed for success in the real world, role-specific, as I said, and created by actual experts. They're built for practical use, lots of hands-on projects, case studies, so you learn by doing. And fundamentally, the focus is on empowering people to lead, not just to understand Bitcoin, but to drive its adoption and implementation within their own company, their own role.
Cultivating that leadership capability makes sense. This has been incredibly insightful, really digging into Bitcoin's business potential and how this certification fits in. So to wrap things up, what's the single biggest takeaway you'd want listeners to leave with?
I think the main point is this. Bitcoin is moving way beyond just being a speculative asset you buy and sell. It's becoming a serious, versatile business tool. The underlying tech, the growing number of uses, it offers real advantages for companies in all sorts of industries.
Right. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over. How could really understanding decentralized tech like Bitcoin change your industry, or even just your specific job, in the next few years? As adoption grows, what new doors might open up that we can't even fully see yet.
Exactly. And if that question sparks your interest, if you want to get that deep understanding and maybe position yourself or your company ahead of the curve,
Mhm.
then checking out the Bitcoin Plus executive certification at www.acerts.io would be a really good next step.
It definitely feels like we're watching a major shift happen, driven by blockchain and digital currencies. Thanks so much for unpacking all of that with us today, and thanks to everyone for tuning into this deep dive. Until next time, keep asking those big questions.